Welcome to Think Big with Michael Zellner, powered by Platinum Jewelers. Welcome to episode 120. My guest today is Mike Lovelace Jr. of the band Joan Red. Mike is a senior analyst tech support at Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis, and he has been there since 2016. He also has his own business called The Guru Guy, which is an at-home IT help desk and consultation service. Mike is a founder, rhythm guitarist, and songwriter, and has been in several bands in his life, including Egypt Central, Crushing Juliet, Seed, Patient Zero, Taylor Made Villains, and he is a guitarist for the band that we're here to talk about today, Joan Red. There's a huge event this Wednesday night at Lafayette's Music Room at Overton Square in Memphis called the Memphis Family Reunion Event and Evening with Joan Red. He's going to tell us all about it and also tell us about the special guest vocalists who are going to be joining the guys on stage too. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. How's it going?
That's going great. I appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks for having me on, for sure.
My pleasure. So, Mike, you grew up in Memphis area. You graduated from Mumford High School back in 1997. You know, we were talking off air that you and I met years ago when you played at my bar in the Highland Strip, the library, when you just out of high school. How old were you when you developed an interest in playing music and wanted to do something big with it?
I guess I was around 6 or 7 years old when I got introduced to some artists at my church, and they had a husband and wife duo that started a band called the Scarlet Thread, and every time that I could, I went and saw them play at the church, and I got real excited about playing guitar and learning guitar. So I turned anything I could grab into a guitar.
Wow.
But I never got one until I was actually, when I was 12 years old, I think, my mother, which, she left when I was 5 originally, but she messaged me or called and said, "What do you want for Christmas?" Every year she would ask. And so for that year, I was like, I want a guitar. I was thinking at the time, I don't know if you remember the Wish book, but, J.C. Penney would put out a Wish book, or Service Merchandise would put out a Christmas Wish book every year. And so I was thinking it would be one of those guitars from there. She actually got me like a full-size Yamaha acoustic guitar and
Sweet.
had somebody bring it to me. But my stepmom didn't like that it was that extravagant gift, I guess, and so she gave it away.
Oh, man.
In fact, I think she traded it for a harmonica, and that ended up going to my older brother. So, but it wasn't until I was 16 years old that I bought my first guitar, and
Nice.
it was not a nice guitar. It was a pawn shop special, but it was enough, and I
Sure.
sat there with the chord book. I think I heard on the interview you did with Zach Myers talk about that Mel Bay chord book. That's exactly what I did. I had that chord book. I learned the chords, and I would just sit there in front of the TV when MTV actually played music, and I would just figure out songs. Yeah, what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where it started. I was when I met Sean, the lead guitar player, we met in middle school, and we ended up being in choir together. And it was, I think, our 8th grade year when we got together and started playing. Well, Sean was already a good guitar player by then, and I had that little crappy acoustic guitar that it couldn't stay in tune. It had a floating bridge, so every time you tuned it and played on it, the bridge would move around. And I mean, it was awful, but it was enough for me to sit there and learn. Basically, I learned all the rhythm parts for Guns N' Roses, so Sean could sit there and play all the lead guitar parts for Guns N' Roses.
Nice.
And from that, we formed our first band in high school called Little Lubricus.
Very cool story. That's a great story. Awesome. Mike, you and your wife Kimberly have been married for over 11 years now. Tell us just a little bit about your family and how you and your wife met.
Yeah, so we did meet at one of my shows, but it was actually after Joan Red, so she never got to see me play with Joan Red at all. She had actually come to our show at Newbies when I was playing with Crush and Juliet, and we met that night. She actually came to the show with a drummer of mine from high school, and she got my attention that night for sure.
Right.
But when I messaged her on Facebook and just said, "Hey, it was nice to meet you," she was like, "Are you flirting with me?" I was, "No, not doing that." And so we didn't talk for a while after that, almost a year, I guess, after that. And I posted something about learning how, or trying to write a song from another person's perspective, because I've always written from my own. And she connected back to me then, and I kind of turned it into a date, and we've been together ever since.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk.
We've got
Go
6
ahead.
kids.
What?
Together, we've got 6 kids.
Wow. The Brady Bunch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And we have a little farm out here in Brownsville area.
Oh, nice.
We love it.
Oh,
We got a little animal rescue also, like you mentioned. So.
Oh, wonderful. I didn't know you did that too.
Mm-hmm.
You know how much of a big dog lover I am. Obviously, I can't hide that on my page.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's the Rock and Rollers Ranch and Rescue.
What do y'all do with that?
We do a lot of local rescues and people on Facebook who are trying to give away animals that were left or abandoned. We try to get them vetted and spayed or neutered, and then find them loving homes. So.
Remind me when we get done here. I have something to ask you about that, because I have somebody that might need some assistance with that. So if you would, when we get off air, I want to talk to you about that.
Sure.
So let's talk a little music. Joan Red started back in 2006. How did the guys come together and form the band at the time?
That's kind of a crazy story in itself, but when Sean and I met Chosen View, that was the song band that Anthony was lead vocals for at the time. And I think they were about 14 years old, probably 15, 14, something like that. We played at the old New Daisy, and it was Dingo Fest, if you remember that.
Yeah, I know Tommy Austin.
Yeah.
Austin,
so it was Dingo Fest, and they played right after us. And I looked at Sean and I was like, all right, dude, we got to step up our shit, because those guys were really good. I was like, these guys are going to blow us away if we don't get better, or if we don't get better members or whatever. And so that was our initial meeting. It was years after that. I was a installer for Comcast. I was a contractor, and it was Time Warner back then, not even Comcast. And I ended up doing the cable internet install for Anthony at his house. And I was like, dude, we got a show coming up this weekend. Our band back then was Patient Zero. And I said, we got a show coming up this weekend together. It's kind of weird that I would be here.
No, it's not. There are no coincidences.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I see you talk about that all the time. And exactly right. No coincidences. So he actually didn't believe me at first, because I had also said, yeah, I played guitar for Egypt Central. And at the time, a lot of people were trying to claim, a connection to that band. The band was doing really well at the time. And he was good friends with them, but we never crossed paths. When he was hanging out with them, I wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so he kind of blew me off initially. And then we ended up playing that show that weekend. And I was like, we had been struggling trying to find a vocalist. We got one of our buddies from choir that was with me and Sean and graduated with us. And he had the vocals for sure, but he just didn't have the front man stage presence. So I asked Anthony if he would come to some of our rehearsals and kind of just give him some pointers. It started there. Anthony came in and he gave him some pointers, and at one point, Albert even looked at us and he was like, you know what, you guys should just make him your singer, you know? And after that rehearsal was over, I kind of, I always stayed around and jammed on guitar after rehearsals. And I played the riff that ended up being the song Show Me the Way. And Anthony poked his head back in the room and he's like, what was that? And I said, oh, that's where you would say, show me the way you feel to be there. And he came over that next night and we ended up writing that song out. And I was like, wow, that was really crazy how fast that happened.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like Chosen View was really hot, and we were looking for a singer. But I told Sean then, I was like, you know, I'll fire anybody in this band who gets in the way if Anthony decides to come and sing for us, just by some miracle, you know?
Yeah.
And so I tried to let everybody know right then I was really serious about if that happened, what, you know, how serious I would take it. And I mean, we decided at some point that we even tried to combine some of the Chosen View guys with our guys from Patient Zero to see how that would work. And nothing clicked, you know, great guys and awesome musicians, but nothing clicked when we got together.
Sure.
And so we said, you know what, let's just take this off the map. And we literally stopped for about a year just to work on the project that ended up being Joan Red. I mean, we didn't have a name or anything, but we just started writing music. And Show Me the Way and You Be the Hero were some of the first ones that we came out with.
Are you shopping for a new watch, an engagement ring, any kind of jewelry at all? What's up, Memphis? This is Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Grizzlies, encouraging you all to shop where I shop, Platinum Jewelers here in Memphis. Platinum Jewelers has a big selection of earrings, stockable rings, luxury watches, necklaces, bracelets, really whatever you need. 9387 Poplar next to Fresh Market in Germantown. So if you need anything jewelry related, go to my spot, Platinum Jewelers.
You know, the band wrote and recorded its first EP, Spread the Red, at Grammy and Dove Award-winning producer Paul Eversold's 747 studio back in 2007. You know, Paul worked with such big names as Al Green, Sister Hazel, Three Doors Down, and, you know, and several others. He must have seen a lot of talent in the band for someone of his stature in the music industry to work with, you know, Joan Red from the very beginning.
Yeah, we wanted somebody who was as hungry as we were at the time. And so we opted to actually use Scott Harden, who had worked under Ebersol. And we used him because we knew he was trying to also make a name for himself at the time. And that's one thing that Joan Red has always done. We only want to work with people who wanted to work with us. Anybody can say, yeah, I'll record you, just pay me money.
Right.
And, you know, and so we've always stuck to that method of it. You know, if you believe in us, then we'll work with you. We did the same thing with our video that for the You Be the Hero video. I mean, it took a lot to get us there, but we finally found somebody who wanted to work with us no matter what. And that's what we needed.
Wonderful. Quote, powerful choruses and catchy hooks driven by thunderous guitars and driving beats. It's music that takes you to another place, a place where fans push to the front of the stage, decked out in black and red to pledge loyalty to a band that most have never heard of, a place where fists pump in the air and the crowd know the words to every song. This isn't just a band. This isn't just a gig. Welcome to a place where every show is an unforgettable rock experience. Welcome to Joan Red, unquote. Wow, Mike, you know, share with the audience how the band made that unforgettable rock experience for the crowd, you know, every single time and place they performed.
I think honestly that we ended up being one of the first viral kind of bands for the internet at that time when MySpace was really big. You know, a lot of people, if you don't remember MySpace, you could actually choose a profile song. And,
I loved MySpace.
It was awesome, right?
Yeah.
And we were able to take advantage of that, and the fact that we didn't just spam people with messages, you know, come listen to our music. We would reach out on a personal level
Nice.
and connect to them and try to get fans before we ever even came to their city. Or if we knew we were going to a city, we would try to target that specific place.
Smart.
And that's how we built relationships and got people to shows before we even made it to the town or even got the tour settled. But it was a job for us. Like literally every day after we got off our regular 9-to-5 jobs, we were on the internet trying to connect to people, and I gotta say it worked. I mean, people will still drive hundreds of miles to see a Joan Red show, and to me, that's insane.
That says a lot. Absolutely. September of 2008 was a big month for the band. Joan Red completed first full-length album. You guys started getting a lot of radio stations in the region playing your music. One of the hottest acts in Memphis at the time that everybody wanted to hear play live. You guys are touring all over the place. Like you mentioned, social media was it was really just getting started back 2005 to 2008. Before even though Facebook was around, it didn't really take off until that point in time. So you guys are getting lots of plays online. I believe I read it was 2.5 million plays online, which was
that's crazy.
Humongous. I mean, back then, especially before reels, before all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
How did y'all handle that success so early on?
Man, it was all about getting the music out there. And so we found any avenue that we could to do it. We constantly networked ourselves and met people who knew people and everything. It was, like I said, it was a job for us. It was a mission for us. And we just tried to take advantage as best we could. We got people to put Red in their names on Facebook or MySpace.
Right.
Sorry, I work for Baptist. Is my church.
That's okay.
Comes out, what I mean? But every bit of their page, slowly we got them to transform into somehow celebrating the band or supporting the band and changing their names. I mean, that was crazy. Some people still have Red in their names online on Facebook.
That's sort of an early version of hashtags.
Too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was just any way that we could incorporate Joan Red or anything. That's what we did. Spread the Red went crazy. I mean,
right.
It was everywhere.
Speaking of success, Joan Red had the opportunity to open up for major national band acts, including 3 Days Grace, Sting, Seether, Avenged Sevenfold, Saving Abel, and more. It must be great, playing for those big crowds in large venues. What do you think is the main thing an up and coming band learns from that experience?
Well, there's all kinds of music influence from everywhere, and we got to play with bands that were kind of heavier than us sometimes. And one of the main things that you see is people just love music.
Yeah.
And if you can connect with anybody while you're doing that, that's incredible. When we see people rocking out to Avenged Sevenfold, but in the front row singing a Joan Red song, that's I mean?
Two different kinds of music.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you able when you're out touring with a band that's larger? I mean, sometimes I know some bands are we're so big we don't have time to spend time with smaller bands, but there's a lot of bands that I've heard from several musicians that do take the time to give advice to younger bands and help them achieve success. Did you guys experience some of that?
Yeah, for sure. Some of the guys from like Evans Blue and stuff like that, we still actually keep in contact, and those were big up and coming bands at the time that we were connecting with, and still keep in touch with the Saving Abel guys. And they were actually our first show in Tupelo. Saving Abel actually opened the show.
Nice.
Then we played direct support for One Less Reason for that show. And then when we came back later on in another tour, we were actually headlining, which was crazy, But then when we played Minerva, Saving Abel was headlining that show.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've known Scott Bartlett for a long time, and he used to play at the library on Highland. I want to say he was going to Rhodes at the time, and his acoustic, I think they were called Route 9, if I remember correctly. But
Yeah,
yeah, I knew back then that guy was going to be really talented.
right. Yeah, it's crazy. Some of the people that are involved with the show I've known for a long time, since before I started doing music. When I ran a music store in Millington for a while called the Musician's Corner, and guys like Zach Myers and Chris Love and those guys would come in there when they were kids. You know, they were like 12 to 14 years old. They were coming in there and rock out, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy. And to see their careers, take off, that's something awesome too for me. Just knowing them from that far back.
Right.
I think one of Zach's first bass players, Lee. I think they had a Lost Highway or something like that.
Leisure Highway.
Leisure Highway. That's
Yeah.
it. He actually came over and played with me in the Lubricus project for a minute. So in and out of those bands and in and out of the music scene and still going strong. Some of these guys, it's pretty awesome.
I think that when I interviewed Zach, we talked about, I remember his dad, Fred. Zach was 13 or 14 at the time. I remember I was waiting for beer deliveries at my bar. His dad knocked on the door, said, "Hey, I wanted you if you listen to my son play." And, back then I got sent tons of, back then it was still cassette tapes and CDs from
Right.
bands all across, people just wanting a shot of some place to play. And I was like, okay, I'm just waiting for beer to lose. I don't have anything to do. And I remember Zach setting up, and I think he had a little amp and small little amp, and he started playing. I just remember my attention went from, loading beer into coolers to stopping that and watching this little kid play.
Right.
And how amazing he was back then. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was a showstopper back then for sure.
Yeah.
And same with Chris Love and Chris Grantham and a lot of Chris's. That's weird, but yeah. And seeing them turn into the musicians and artists and producers they are now, that's crazy. Highland was hot back then, man. I remember, when I went to University of Memphis, that was the place to be,
Yeah, you had the library, Fats, and Newbies. Newbies was great. When Todd Adams ran Newbies, he had some amazing bands that came through Newbies at the time.
Yeah, I remember a lot of the national shows that came through there, and some of the local bands we got to play with, like Bad Apple and Broken before they were Breaking Point.
Yeah, they used to play at my bar. Like Justin, those are good guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Joan Red signed a deal with Fuel Records, which is distributed by Warner Music Group. And anyone in the music industry knows that obviously Warner Music Group is big time. Shortly after that, lead singer Anthony Basurto, he tragically passes away in his sleep in June of 2011. Such a young age. I mean, just 26 years old. Understandably, the band decides not to move forward, without him. He had such an amazing voice. What was the Anthony that you knew? What was he like, to play with?
Anthony was he was our brother, and he was our friend, and he was our family, but he was also somebody that we would get toe to toe with sometimes. And I think that's what made the music even more powerful. Like, I like to tell the story when we wrote the song Crush. It was almost a confrontation with me and him from the beginning, because I was playing the parts, and he literally just grabbed my guitar off of me. And it's like, I want you to play it like this. And I was like, hold on, whoa. That would made me step back for a minute, and we literally did. We get toe to toe, nose to nose, ready to go, and within that 5 minutes, we realized that we needed to do what was best for the song, and we finished writing the song within that 5 minutes, and that's the song that became Crush. That was crazy to me to even think about, but that's how it worked out. And it wasn't the last time we went toe to toe either, because we were both, I guess, A personalities or alphas,
Sure.
But I think that did come through a lot in the songwriting and stuff as well. Anthony and I were the ones who wrote most of the songs in the background, because after practice we would sit there and start playing. He would get on the drums because he loved to play the drums. And so that gave him a chance to get off of the microphone and back behind the kit, and he loved that. And that's where we would jam and come up with our next song, you know.
And he had, I mean, you obviously wanted him, you know, going back a few years, you know, you wanted him in that band because you knew how good of a singer he was.
Oh man, he was incredible vocalist, absolutely. But he was such a front man also.
Yeah.
And not a egotistical look at me, but like grabbed your attention no matter who you were.
Stage presence that guy had.
It. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people have it and some don't.
Exactly. That's one of the hardest things that Joan Red would have to try to replace, you know, because if you ask a lot of people, Joan Red, Anthony was Joan Red, you know.
Right.
And you know, there were 4 other guys in the band, but Anthony was Joan Red to us and to them. And so it was, like you said, we had to kind of call it quits at that point. That it just didn't feel like there was going to be it definitely didn't feel like at that time like it would even be feasible to try to find somebody to replace that. And even today, like when we've been rehearsing these songs and stuff, I see some of the vocalists and they're doing a killer job and they're great, you know, but they're just like, after they're done, they're like, damn you, Anthony, like, how did you do that? You know what I mean? And I didn't realize that, but because I was just so used to him doing the vocals and just out there shining, I didn't realize how difficult he was making it for people to follow him, you know?
Right. Yeah, the stage presence is something that I think about, you know, being someone who, I don't say I'm a music expert, but I think I know a decent about music, being that, you know, I had the bar and had a lot of bands that played there and had to, you know, rate bands and figure out who I wanted to play. And one of the bands that I think of, someone that has great stage presence, is Brent from Shinedown.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean those guys, he commands it.
Right. Yeah. And I think Jacoby from Papa Roach.
Also. Yeah, that's another good one. Absolutely. Yeah, I can't see anybody else taking the place of either of those guys.
Right.
Making that work. Not that everybody in the band isn't great, but
absolutely. Right.
Yeah, but you know,
like with Linkin Park, you know,
right.
Same thing with those guys. Like,
yeah, there's no way. No one's going to take over for that. Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it's now been over 10 years since the band has played together, you know, on any level. What have, you know, you guys, everybody been doing since 2011?
I think everybody's just been working and, you know, making a life with their family and their kids. And musically, I think some of us have done some stuff here and there. And I've done some songwriting with some buddies of mine and old music friends from back then. Sean's been writing and recording with the Sons on Fire band that's going to be playing the show that night also with us. Trip had not touched the drums since he last played with Joan Red until maybe a couple months ago when he got I think he said a couple months, it might have been a year, when he got his oldest daughter a drum kit, like an electronic drum kit to mess around. But he hadn't played on an acoustic set until we started rehearsing for this big show coming up.
How does it pick it back up again? I mean, is it just like come right back to you? Does it take a little while?
Oh yeah, I had to relearn some of my own songs, and I think everybody had to, like, what did I do there? You know, listen back to it and try to figure it out. Yeah, but I can tell you when we first started talking about it, Trip. First of all, I've always offered Trip the drums in anything that I've done because I love Trip on the drums, and he's so solid and just, you know, he. When Scott recorded him, he was like, dude, I don't have to move anything when he records. So everybody was thrilled that he was going to play at all, but we thought he would maybe play 1 or 2 songs, and now he's going to play all the songs. So nice. We got in and started rehearsing with Brent, and Brent and Trip never played together. They weren't in the band at the same time. but they really locked in, and we started just knocking out the songs just one after another. I was like, holy cow, Trip can play all of these songs. And so we just started rehearsing like that, and kept it like that.
I think that. Good. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying it sounds really good. I mean, if you hadn't known that we hadn't played in so long, there's no way you would be able to tell if you were in that room, So,
and having that nucleus, strong nucleus, I mean, a good musician knows, when you're talking about a few minutes ago, if things are clicking well and if they're not clicking well. I mean, it.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like when we tried to form the super group that with combining Chosen View, that was we immediately noticed that there nothing clicked. We loved jamming with those guys, but there was nothing that clicked, and it has to click. It has to, we can bring in a bunch of different players, but if we can't all sit down and jive at some point and meet on that almost next level, then we know that we'll just have to keep trying until we get somebody who clicks.
And it doesn't mean that they're not good at what they do. I mean, it just means it just doesn't work well together sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. All told, I think in and out of the band, when I counted one time, I think there was over 20 different musicians in and out of the band, which is crazy, but we just had to keep the train going. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so if somebody couldn't do it, we got somebody else and started running, but all told, I think it was about 20 different people. And luckily, for the most part, I think everybody was able to click and come in and join and run like we had just kept going,
Awesome.
So
how did the idea for this Memphis Family Reunion Event Wednesday night at Lafayette come about, to get everybody back together? What inspired this?
Sean messaged me because Sons on Fire was looking for some tour dates to fill, and I said, well, let me message some folks. So I messaged Tony from Growlers, and I messaged Julian from Lafayette, and I messaged Roach and said, Sean's looking for something. Now, Roach has always been our guy from day one. Roach helped us. Roach got us on the first tour with One Less Reason and switched. And ever since then, Roach has always been there, just like you guys and Mike Glenn and a bunch of different people have always just been there for us. I guess he reached out to Roach, and they talked and connected again after a while. And the next day, Roach called and said, what do you think about playing a Joan Red show? And I was like, I think I just sold my equipment 3 weeks ago because I told my wife I wasn't going to use it on stage again. And now I got to order some more equipment. But I did. I literally sold my gear like 3 weeks prior to that, and had given up hitting the stage again at that point. I was just like, it's not in the cards. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And look at us now. It's crazy.
I know. Yeah. On the Joan Red Facebook page recently, it said, quote, new music by Joan Red from the unreleased sessions. We proudly present to you Blue Sky Shy, unquote. Thank you, Joan Red. Tell us a little bit about the unreleased sessions and what the song Blue Sky Shy is about.
Well, Blue Sky Shy was written while we were writing the first album, but we also had another song called Prayer for Rain. And so when it came to putting music on the album, we didn't want to choose two that had something to do with the sky. So we were like, oh, we'll just put Blue Sky Shy on the second album. So we did pre-production for it, but we never got to fully record it. And that was on the back burner to put on the second album. But the song itself was an instant hit. As soon as we started playing it at the shows, people started requesting it like crazy. And it was about just Anthony's fascination with storms. He didn't feel like it was a great day if the sun was out and the sky was blue. He loved it when he could see a storm rolling And so it was nothing gothic or dark at all.
Right.
Just the mood, you know. And so that's kind of what we put into that song. And a real funny story is how I came up with the riff for the song. I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken on my way to rehearsal, and we were just playing in some friends of ours little shop behind their house back then, Joe and Kayla, and those guys are great. I hope to see them at the show. But we were playing out there, and I think they were just kind of razzing me for stopping to get food before I got there. And I said, well, I was going to KFC to get some chicken fingers. And I used that to write the riff, going to KFC to get some chicken fingers. And that's how I remembered the riff when I wrote it. And that's how we wrote that song. It's crazy.
It's the little things, man.
It is, absolutely, yeah. I mean, when we met, you know, I didn't get to say, I don't think, how I met Tripp last time, but when I met Tripp through a visit to McDonald's. Somebody at the window saw the sticker for my band Lubricus on my windshield and asked what it was. And I said, oh, that's our band. And he's like, that's cool, man. I know somebody who plays drums. I was like, dude, I need a drummer. And I got his phone number. I invited him out. And after that rehearsal, I looked at Sean and I was like, dude, we've never had to turn up our guitars to hear our drummer before. You know, we've usually had to turn down. And I was like, that kid slaps the crap out of those drums, man. I said, we definitely need to grab this kid. I think he was 19 at the time.
The power of the moment. I know I say that all the time. But imagine if you had not stopped at McDonald's at that day, at that time, that kid wasn't working.
Yeah, exactly. It was just, it's wild how everything came together like that.
It is, for sure. You know, being talked about a former live music bar owner and someone who's put together reunion shows, you know, several bands playing. Matter of fact, I'm putting together one now, a 25th, you know, anniversary live reunion show. You know, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that most people don't see. You know, it takes a lot to put something together like this, tons of moving parts. You just mentioned, you know, Roach, you know, Chris Jones of 2001 Developments. He's a big part of why this is happening for you guys. Tell us, you know, about Chris and how this is all, you know, now come together. What's going to be an awesome night this Wednesday.
Yeah, so like I said, Roach has been with us since day one. So when Roach approached me and asked me, I was like, well, who are we going to get to sing? And he's like, well, I got an idea. Let's try to reach out to get some of these guys that we played with back then and that we came up with back then to come back and do this with us, and like a reunion. I was like, huh, okay. So we started reaching out to people just to put feelers out there to see what would happen, and people just started jumping in left and right. And we got really excited, and then we're like, okay, like this is gonna happen, I guess. So then it was down to trying to find a venue, and Lafayette's, we actually never got to play Lafayette's before, but it's a great location, and parking is good, and you know, so everything that we needed to happen and be there in the middle of the week just ending up there at Lafayette's. And you know, we had worked with Julian back when he was at Hard Rock,
right.
You know, and even the sound guy Keith Lyles up there, he's doing. I mean, he was always the best in Memphis. We've always been excited anytime he was around to run sound. He used to see him at the stage stop when he was running sound for Breaking Point or Broken back then, and the other bands in there. And I was like, dude, that guy's so good. You know, but for him to be doing the sound for the show, that even that little small piece for some people is huge for us. It is literally a reunion for all of Memphis and the music at that time. It's not just me and Sean and Tripp and Brent getting together to replay the old songs. It's literally all kinds of people from back then when the music scene was just a brotherhood. It was huge. It was where everybody wanted to be in Memphis back then.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have a ton of incredible vocalists joining you guys Wednesday night. Tell us about, you know, some of the people that are going to be on stage with you guys.
Yeah, so we've got Zach Myers from Shinedown, of course, and Shy Eubank from Savage After Midnight. When we were coming up, there those guys were Sore Eyes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Right?
On this
Yeah,
for us. Yeah.
and then I think Empire City after that. So Scott Bartlett and Jared Weeks from Saving Abel. Like I said, we've been close with them for a while. Um, Chris Brown, for one less reason, our very first tour was out with them guys.
Nice.
And we've got Gary from Persevere. Um, uh, there's a huge list of all kinds of people that are coming in to sing and or collaborate and sing. We've got some new people also, and so Allison from Roses on Red is going to come sing. Um, my singer from Taylor Made Villains, Stephen Gray, Dustin Allen from a new band called Line So Thin. Their single just came out like February 2nd. And then the Sleep Theory band is also coming to play the show with us. Um, those guys are blowing up right now on social media. Also, I think they're in the top 10 or close to one on Octane right now. And
Nice.
they just got the I think they're opening the headlining stage at Memphis in May. So we've got a lot of moving parts, like you said, but we got a lot of vocalists that are coming in to blow people away. So it's gonna be really nice.
Is there anything in the works that you can share with the audience about, what might happen after the event is over with Joan Red?
I can say that there's a lot of hope.
Okay.
And some of the vocalists that sing, they might be some vocalists that you see later on. We don't really know. There's a uh, there's certainly been we're just kind of blown away by how much interest the idea of the show has gotten and everything. There's a lot of people in the industry who got excited to see Joan Red back on the map. So um, we don't know what will happen. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to that too, just
Sure.
logistically, because Sean lives in California and we don't live in the same vicinity. But thankfully, with today's capabilities, we can actually do recordings and send them back and forth, and
Amazing how
people can
different
put
it
their
is,
own
isn't it?
stuff. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. But with those capabilities, I think the music could go on for sure.
Wonderful.
Finding the vocalist has got to be the key, though.
Yeah.
And they're very big shoes to fill
Yeah.
for sure. Um, and so we're not even sure how that could work yet, but we're not opposed to experimenting, see what happens, because I think there's a lot of music left in the band for sure.
How can people find Joan Red on social media and also purchase tickets for Wednesday night show at Lafayette's Historical Music Room?
All right, the tickets, you can just go to joanred.simpletix, that's TIX.com to purchase the tickets. I think they're $20 pre-sale and $25 at the door. There's also a VIP merch package that's available for people there at that site also. And the merch that we've got coming is crazy. I mean, we had to open a bunch of old doors to get our merch back together and try to make that happen also. But we've got a lot of custom merch gonna be there, and we've got just I mean that if people knew everything that goes on behind the scenes, it would probably drive some people crazy.
Right.
There's so many things happening, and so we're definitely looking forward to it. We've got our Facebook, we've got our Instagram. We're starting a Patreon page. I don't even know a whole lot about that stuff yet.
I don't know about Patreon.
It's a learning curve for me on some of that stuff, but I don't know if we have a TikTok yet, but I'm sure there'll be one at some point, because we do want to also capture the younger audience and
Sure.
keep bringing people to the music. We get messages from literally around the world and have for a long time about Joan Red and how the music has reached people and stuff like that. And it's just incredible to us. And then to see all the love and support for this type of event also, we've got people coming from everywhere. We've got, got some people coming from out of the country.
Really?
And, yeah. And it's crazy that our little band from Memphis had that kind of impact where people would want to be involved that bad with something like this.
That's awesome.
It makes
people want to be around good music, though, man. They do.
Yeah, and I think the music is definitely part of the draw for the show, but also just seeing everybody that we used to be with and hang out with back then. It was such a big part of our lives. I think that's going to be a huge part of the show too.
Yeah, and it's different than seeing, social media is great. You can keep up with what's going on in people's lives and their family and kids, but there's nothing like, what we grew up to, seeing people in person and having that, camaraderie.
And we made it an all ages event, and which is incredible for us to kind of a bucket list item for some of us, because some of our kids never got to see us play or haven't yet,
Yeah,
so it's really big.
That.
Yeah, it is. It's really big. And other people get to bring in their kids that had never got to go to a Joan Red show. And so a lot of people are just excited to bring that new energy in. The music still does really well for us. I mean, like I said, I think there's a lot of music left in Joan Red, but we'll see what happens.
What time do the doors open Wednesday night?
Doors open at 7, I believe. And we've got the 4 bands, so it'll be, I don't know the specific order, but we've got Sleep Theory playing, we've got Roses on Red playing, we've got Sons on Fire playing, and then Joan Red will play.
Awesome. Mike, you and I have known each other for many years. We talked about, back in the library days when you were just, first starting off really playing in bands. And I got to meet your lovely wife, Kimberly, when you guys came in my former store, Sleepy Z's, and got a mattress set for me. We saw each other last fall for the first time in several years when, Josie Scott from Saliva and Todd Poole from Roxy Blue were playing here in Memphis. You're a really nice guy, and I'm excited for you and the band, and can't wait, for you guys to get out there and play music again. I know you have to be stoked.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's so many emotions. It's crazy. It was great to see you at that Saliva show with Josie. I mean, I've watched Josie since I was little, and well, not little, but coming into the scene. And my daughter was on my shoulders when she was a baby at the Click Click Boom video shoot out in the middle of that field. So it's awesome. I mean, she gets to come to the show, and she's an adult. She's 22 now. You know what I mean? And I posted a video earlier of her daughter, who's about to be 2, our granddaughter, rocking out to Joan Red in the car.
Wow.
It's just full circle, man. It's crazy.
That's awesome. I'd like to I want to thank my sponsor for Think Big, Platinum Jewelers here on Poplar Avenue in Germantown, for sponsoring the show. And Mike, once again, thanks for coming on today. I can't wait for Wednesday night.
Thank you, man. We're looking forward to seeing everybody and catching up as much as we can in as little time as we have to, just hang out again.
It's going to be an awesome night. Appreciate you coming on again.
Okay. Thank you.
You too.